Bonjour. If you are a collector, you would know how hard it can be to part with some pieces of your collection. Well, not only have I been collecting antiques for what feels like a lifetime now, I have also been collecting antique fabrics for nearly just as long. I don't know what it is about them, but I just cannot resist them when I'm outsourcing. I think it must be their colors, patterns, and overall faded beauty. But every time they just grab me. So anyway, today I'm using some scraps of antique fabrics that I've used for some projects like cushions and other stuff for some of my clients. So I'm just using the scraps to make beeswax wraps. If you are not familiar with them, they are a great alternative to plastic cling film, and they basically replace the traditional cling film to cover food in the fridge or wrap sandwiches to take on the go. The only thing is that they cannot be used in the microwave as the heat would melt the beeswax. So I'm using 3 different fabrics today. The floral and the checkered ones are from the late 19th century, and the one with the cashmere pattern is from early 20th century. I just love when I find something to use these scraps for. I just think those fabrics are so precious that I love to see them keep going with their lives. So anyway, you first want to iron your fabrics really well and then cut off any seams that might be on the edges, and also cut your pieces of fabric into manageable pieces. Then you want to roll out some baking paper, big enough to place your biggest piece of fabric on top with some extra room around the edges. Then you transfer that onto an ironing board. So 1 layer of baking paper, 1 layer of fabric, and then you just sprinkle your beeswax pellets on top of the fabric and cover everything with a second sheet of baking paper. Then with your iron on medium heat, gently melt the wax into the fabric, using your iron to spread the liquid wax around. There's no need to use the steam for this. Gently lift up the top layer of baking paper, and if some spots were missed, just add more beeswax pellets and repeat the process, putting the baking paper on top again and ironing. Once all your fabric pieces are dry, you can cut them into your desired shapes. This time I cut some into discs to cover yogurt pots when I make homemade yogurt, and I've also cut some larger pieces that I always find handy having around the kitchen. I know these can be made in the oven as well. I've tried that technique in the past, but I find that the iron is really a lot easier to have an even layer of wax melted into the fabric. I wanted to share about this interior design book I adore by Luke Edward Hall. It's called A Kind of Magic, and it's a dive into this artist's poetic and flamboyant world. I love it because it's unserious, full of color, incredibly creative, and slightly mad. I just really love it. It's very British, and it's almost, I could say, witty, if an interior can be witty, but that's the feeling it gives me. I have added the link in the description box. Lastly, I wanted to thank you all so warmly for being so kind and welcoming as you watched my first videos. It's very heartwarming and very exciting to read that you are watching from all corners of the world. So thank you, et à bientôt.